Are you overrun with paper scraps and can't bring yourself to throw them away because they're usable? I'm Marianne, and welcome to Happy Paper People, where 2023 is the year of using scraps and forgotten supplies. Today, we're making teeny tiny journals, tiny books, completely out of scraps. So grab your scrap bin, grab some glue, your choice, grab some scissors or a paper trimmer, and we'll be ready to go. So let me show you first what we've got. Super easy. These are all out of scraps completely, a tiny little journal. And you can use, this one I think is all coffee dyed paper, just scraps. You can see they're not even the same size throughout the book, and a piece of cardstock scrap for the cover. 3-hole pamphlet stitch to close it, and a couple of hearts in the center. I haven't decided how I want to close it, or if I want a belly band, or exactly how it's going to be used. So I'm holding it closed with a paper clip until I make that decision. This one is slightly different. This one has a couple of flowers hanging down here in the center. And this one is a folio mini journal. So on the inside of this one is a little paper pad, and that is just stitched on super easily. So you could untie that one and replace that paper if you wanted to. And then there's the mini journal there. And this one has some coffee dyed rice paper and some coffee and ink stained paper and just scraps of all kinds of things. So you could make that a lot thicker if you wanted. Now, notice that this has 3 sections to it. Maybe some of you are saying, I recognize that. Why would you recognize that? Because that one is actually the 3 squares that comes off of the cover of a paper pack. So you might even recognize some of these. So have you got those paper packs where the cover has all the little squares on it and shows you what kind of paper is inside? I always keep those covers, and I cut them up and I leave them in strips until I go to use them to decide exactly how I'm going to use them. But I've got a ton, and they're all sizes. Some are larger, some are smaller, which is really nice, and all different kinds of colors. So this was a smaller pack, and there's in 2s. So I can decide whether I want to take 2 squares like this and turn that into a mini journal, or if I want to take 3, there's a couple of them that were already in 3s here. If I want to take 3, don't worry if this is on here, made in China or whatever it is, leave it there. We just decorate over the top of it and make a folio mini journal. I love that paper. That would make a really pretty little cover. So I will usually leave them in 3s or 4s or whatever, I can. Sometimes I've cut off one to use it for something else. And so I end up with just 2 or 3 left. But that's one of my favorite things to do with the covers of the paper pads that have those squares on them. But I'm going to set that aside. I consider those scraps too. And today we're going to do it 100% from scraps from my scrap bin. I just grabbed a handful of scraps here, and I'll show you how I decide and what I do. So right on the top, so for the cover, I want something that is cardstock. This one is cardstock. That's kind of cute, but it's kind of very specific. I do like the outside. That's just kind of grungy, and I could decorate that with whatever. If I cut that off right there, that's kind of a perfect little size there. So that's a really good option. Here's something. I was probably making a bunch of tags and things that coordinated to go in a journal, and this one got either lost or left over, whatever it is. But that would make a really cute little book right there too. So that one will work. This is called, it's kind of lighter cardstock. That one's cardstock. Not crazy about that side, but that side's cute, and I could cut that down to any size. That would make a pretty little journal cover there as well. You can make them any size you want. You could cut this in half and make 2. You could make a tall, thin one. Okay, I'm not going to go through the rest of those. I'm just going to go ahead and choose I'll choose to use this. This is pretty, since teal is my favorite color. That's already got a nice little border. That'll make a very, very cute little book cover. So we're going to use that. All right. So I'm going to give this a quick measure. It is about 2 inches tall and 4 inches long. So that means when I fold it, it's 2 by 2. The paper inside is going to need to be just slightly shorter than 2, or it will hang over the edge as it folds and takes up extra space. So that's going to be 2 by slightly less than 4. All right, so anything that's cardstock, I'm going to put it aside because I don't want to put cardstock inside. But then I will look at, let me see my cover, and I can choose what I want to put inside. That might go, not really colors. Oh, that'll be pretty. That'd be pretty. This is kind of a cottony paper that's kind of cool. Just in case that's not long enough, I could cut a piece off of that. There's some vellum that would work. Some invitation paper. A little calendar strip. I think I'll save that and use it for one of those that I make that's just slightly taller. Then I still have some color on it, but you also see the days. Perfect. There's a little piece of Braille paper. That may work. That one's bigger. We'll use that one. That's kind of cardstocky, so that might make a good little cover. But music paper, some book paper. Oh, that one matches. There's some altered. Let's see. Use that one. That one's pretty. Might be getting plenty here, but I would like to get some coffee dyed paper in, so that might work. I'll keep one of those just in case. And if this is not quite big enough, then I'll use one off of that. Set those aside. That would be cool in there too. Probably don't even need that big one. And that's pretty. So let me just take that little piece right there. We can get whatever size we need off of that. Okay, so the rest of it, I'm going to move right out of the way. I didn't count how many we have, but if I start getting pages ready and have way too many, then we'll just take a few out and use them for another one. So what did we say this was? This was almost too high, and so we want about 1 3/4, 1 3/4 plus height for our pages. So all I'm going to do is first take some of these and just make them about 1 3/4 height. They can be less. That can go in there, and it can be shorter. That's totally okay. That is actually a duplicate of that, but a bit long to work with. So let's go 1 3/4 plus. I'd rather have it plus and trim just a tiny bit off. And that, you know what? I'm going to leave that one all torn because it's smaller than, that's getting close to 2 over there. Maybe I should just tear some of that when we go to it because I like it. I like that torn look. This is some of my favorite. This is a paper bag or paper brown paper packing, and just putting stencils on it and using different kinds of media and mediums on it. I love this, to do a whole sheet of it at once, and I just tear it up and use it bit by bit, and it's awesome. How about we take a piece about like that? That'll work. A little small, but it might work. And oh, here, there we go. It's a little, cut that a little slower. It grabs the rice paper and pulls it. So first I'm just making the right height, and then I'll worry about the length, because the fatter you get the book, the more pages that you put in, when you fold it, if they're all the same length, then the ones on the outside are going to be too short because they have to go around. The one on the inside is folded exactly in half. The one around it is folded around this, and so forth. So when you get to the outside one, if it's folded around 10 other papers, then it ends up being too short. So there's an easy way to deal with that. I love this Braille paper too. Probably just leave this torn on one side, cut on one and torn on one. That works. That's got a, I don't even remember what kind of media I did on that one, but it's lavender. And I know it wasn't lavender to begin with, so that's pretty. I've got some stuff from the gel plate and some stuff from my scrap. I love to put scraps in a splat box and alter the scraps. This is a good one too. This is that like wedding invitation type paper. It's very pretty. And I always had paper underneath the little scraps in the splat box, and that paper underneath gets altered as well. And I love that. It ends up looking really cool. So I don't know if some of these are long enough, but if they aren't, we can cut another one that way if we need to. And we can also choose to put those shorter ones on the inside so that they don't have to bend as far. This was a book page that I used a stencil on. Might have been on the gel plate, but one of my favorite stencils there. Okay, so now we've got some pages. With all the rest of the scraps out of the way. Okay, throw this away. We're not going to keep these scraps this year. We're going to throw that away. We're going to use down to the little bitties, and then we're going to throw the teeny tiny little bitties away. If you want to, if you're making this and you have little bitties and then you want to use those to make some clusters right now while you're doing it, do it. And then when you're done, throw all those little bitties away. You will feel much better about your scrap selection, trust me. Okay, so let's see. What would we like to be the center? This is really pretty, I think, but that's a nice long one. Is this one as long? It is not. And if we trim that off, that's shorter. Okay, so I'm going to make that the center one. I'll just put it like that. Okay, so then the others are going to go around it. So we just kind of want to do them in order of how we would like to see them. And what I try to do is just not put all the colored ones together and all the coffee dyed paper together, just so that there's a little bit of variety there. So, and I also want it so that when I open the book, I see some of the colors, you know, on this side as I open them, not just all of them on the inside. And I'll show you what I do on the opposite side of a page that might just be white. I don't know if we have any. Okay, there's a good example. There's some stencil color on that side, and then this side is completely white. And if I don't want that white, because maybe it's going to be a vintage type book, I will just take a stencil. You can use that one. That's a good one. Get parts and pieces of it. So that'll be up. We'll go that way. Okay. I will just take a stencil. Anything with, I don't usually use feathers, but that one was sitting right here. We'll usually use something with a pattern. And it's typically, this is what I do in my large journals. So you've got large pieces of paper. And so I'm not going to do the entire stencil on it. I'll put the stencil down and I'll just do a little bit here and a little bit there, which breaks the white page. Okay, so it's not a really heavily defined feather, but it's enough that you can tell what it is, but it just gives a little vintage to that to break that page. Okay, so if we have that, there's our cover. Let's get this, and we're going to cut it off right about that crease right there. Okay, we're just going to deal with these when we get to the end. If we need to cut something a little bit more, we will. We'll put that in there. Next to that, we'll put that one. Probably could use a little stenciling on the back, but it's okay. That one, and then that one. That one, how many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so you can think of it as a signature, and how many pages do you typically put in your signature? But sometimes You want to make it fatter than that if it's just a little book. It doesn't have to be like one signature. Also, there are times when your mini book can have multiple signatures. Here's a good example. I always have had these for probably 10 years. It's been a long time since I had a perfume sample. But this is one of those little things that a perfume sample came in. It's already got a spine on it. And that's a perfect spine for 2 tiny little signatures. So I would put 2 signatures in that, turn it into a mini book. Could leave this out here and decorate it so it's already got that outside, or cover the whole thing. Doesn't make any difference. So that's another option. So if you make a spine on it, make it a little wider, it's easy to put in more than one signature. And these are great little books to stick in larger journals, but I also like them to just stick in a pocket or in my purse and be able to have them on hand for notes and lists, quick shopping list, or just something I need to remember. Okay, let's see. We may have too many pages here, but let's find out. Okay, so there's all our pages. And I'm going to try to kind of center them. You know what? I'm going to choose to take this one out, this lavender one. It's pretty, but it's a little too short, and I probably have too many pages anyway, so that'll be an easy one to eliminate. I'm going to just kind of center them. And when you're done with this, you can decorate these. I made those 2 there really quickly and just showed you how to put them together, or that's what I'm going to show you. But you can also put pockets and tucks and all kinds of things. Just decorate it like you would a regular full-size journal. Okay. All right, so easy enough to put it together like that. And then now I know how long they need to be, because the ones on the outside are folded around the ones on the inside. I don't need to measure them. All I need to do is come over here and cut them off. What I'm checking is to see if my outside page is the same on both sides. And let's check it against our cover. Okay, the whole thing is a little bit too long for the cover. So now I have a choice. I can either grab a different cover, because there's plenty of cardstock, or I can make this short enough to go inside. First off, I'm going to cut off the top and make that level up here. See if there's anything on the bottom. There isn't. And will that work? That's right at the edge, but that'll work because I like it. So it's going to work. Okay, and then because these all have some pretty teal and they go with this, I want to make them work for this. I'm not going to grab a different cover, which means that they all need to be cut back. And it's hard to cut them all at the same time, but if I can get in here and cut all the papers at the same time, which means I'm cutting through half of this, then I can cut the other half. I want to keep them together as tight as possible. So let me grab looking for a binder clip. I know there's a binder clip here. A little bulldog clip will work too. Okay. I'm going to clip them together so they stay put where I want them. And I'm going to see where I need them to go. And this one on the inside, I can tell is the exact right length. So I'm just going to clip all of these to go that way, because when they bend, I'm holding them so when it opens flat, they don't move. And I'm just going to cut them all to be that length. A little awkward, but it works. Okay, let's see how that works. Perfect. Okay, so fold it up, cut the other side, the back side, to match the front side. And if I look at it and I see something isn't straight, I can straighten it up as I go. So it's a little hook on the top there. There we go. And we don't care if it's exact right, because that is the beauty of handmade. We want people to know it's handmade, but we also don't want it to look so perfect that they say, maybe it's not handmade. Maybe it's not. Okay. And now I'm going to binder clip that. I'm going to grab another, well, bulldog clip. Kind of, sort of, same thing. I'm going to bulldog clip the other side as well. The reason I'm doing this is to keep it exactly in place so that my fold is right on the spine. I do not want that to go anywhere because I need to make my holes. And I left my awl in the other room. That's okay. I do have, let's see, where did I just set it? I do have one of these, which is like an awl. It's an awl. It's a crafty awl. It's a We Are Memory Keepers. Some people call them pokey tools. I don't like pokey tool. It makes us sound like we just don't know what our tools are, what we're calling them. So I call it an awl. All right, we're going to do the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, which is a super easy stitch. You can do it on any size of signature or journal that you're doing. And so the first thing we're going to do is poke a hole in the center. Now I do have I'll try to find it. I do have a video where I showed how to make a template, and you could keep that template to lay it out and get your holes exactly the same distance apart if you wanted to, and where to put them. I don't really care so much to use a template because eyeballing is close enough and you really can't tell, especially on these tiny ones. They don't have that much place to go. So you've only got 2 inches to deal with 3 holes. So, you know, how far off are you going to be? So then I'm going to go halfway between this side and halfway between this side, and I'm going to poke a hole on each side. Now I want to make sure that my paper is staying in. If I pushed it hard and it got a little ski-wampus, I need to make sure that hole is still in place. I can see through it, so I know it is. But I don't want my paper to twist so it's coming out the top or out the bottom. Because then when I sew it in, it's going to be coming out the top or out the bottom. I want it to be straight. Okay, so I've got my center hole there. I'm going to go halfway between the center hole and this side. Just put it into my art rag there, and I'm going to go halfway between the center hole and this side. You could use a book, an old book to put that on, or a foam block, or, you know, stamping block, or any of those kinds of things. I just grabbed my art rag because it's always there. Okay, so I've got 3 holes. They don't look super pretty. Don't worry about that because you're not even going to see them. All right, then we need to grab something to bind with. I tend to always go for this white binding thread, especially doing tutorials, because you can see it because it's white, but you can also color it. I can run it through an ink pad. I can run it through some alcohol ink, run it through anything and make it any color you want. I don't really need to measure it because this is so tiny. So I'll just grab 12 inches or less. But if I'm binding a large journal, I would basically take this and go 3 lengths. So 1, 2, 3 plus a little. So that's pretty much where I ended up anyway, of the journal that I'm binding, to know that I have enough. And I always have too much. But it's better to have too much than not enough, because you can cut some off and you can use the scraps if they're big enough. Don't keep them if they're inch-long scraps, but you can't add any on. All right, super, super simple. You're going to always start in the center and go down. And the easy way to remember that is that you need a tail left in the center. When you're done, you want these tails here so you can attach something on and you can see your ties there. So that'll help you remember to always start going down in the center so you have a tail. I need one shorter, one to pull through, because I need to leave a nice long tail on here. The closer I am to leaving a tail on here where they can both tie at the end, the less I have to go back and pull and push and try to reorganize them. All right, so down the center, up the bottom. Now you can go up the top too. It doesn't matter. The whole point is just down the center and up one of the others, because then you're going to go across the center, and down the other one. So you see why it doesn't matter whether you come up the top one or the bottom one. Making sure my hole is lined up. I don't want to make a new hole. I want that hole to be lined up. I must have rearranged my paper a bit. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So down the center, up the side or the bottom, across the center and down the top, and then back up the center. Super, super easy. Down the center, up the bottom, down the top, up the center. If you write down those 4 things, it'll work no matter what size your journal. So as I'm putting this in the center to come back up, the only thing that I'm trying to be careful of is to not split the string that is already there. This one. I'm trying, it's not a super big hole, so I'm trying to get in next to it. I don't want to come up in the middle of that string and split it if I can help it. Not that it's the end of the world, but, you know, and I can't see. Let's see here. I think I must have moved my hole around there as well. Give me a little room to wiggle those. What happened to the hole? Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, and then when I come up in the center, I want to come up on the opposite side of the center thread as this one is. So this tail is over here. I'm going to put my needle underneath the center so I come up over here. I hope that doesn't have, almost seems like it has a big reflection. Yeah, it does. So I'm going to move that over a bit. All right. So there you see the center binding thread and one tail on each side. Now, what I want to do before I tie that off is turn it over and make sure that these are taut. There's a little bit of looseness there, a little bit of looseness there. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hang on to these two. I'm going to pull that and make sure it's taut from the center. And then when I pull the 2 tails through, that'll tighten that one and that'll tighten the other one. Now that I know that they're taut, I'm just going to tie them off. Now, one is way longer than the other. It only matters if this one is not long enough, but this one is long enough for me to use as my center, so I'm just going to leave that. Okay, so keep them taut. We'll tie it up. I will tie it again, basically a square knot, and then just for safety's sake, I will tie it a 3rd time. They're a little fiddly because they're teeny tiny. Okay, and then I'll come down here and cut this off. If they're both really long, then I'll just cut them the same long, and when I go to put my end on, I can decide how long I want them. But this one's about the right length right there. I'm going to cut this one up to about right here. Okay, so I've got 2 tails. They're different lengths. That one actually might be just a little bit long, and you can choose how long you want them. I'm not going to keep these, going to toss them. So then I grabbed 4 just tiny punches. This is a little duck, like a little yellow duck. It might be kind of cute with that, but it's not necessarily a little ducky thing. So I've got a heart. This heart is smaller than this heart. So if I do teeny, teeny, tiny book, I'll use the tiny heart. I'll use this one. Actually, this is the one used on here. So that's the one I use the most often. Let's do the heart or the flower because that's what's left. And we need something. This should be stiff enough. I typically go for cardstock, but this brown paper is fairly thick. Let's see if it will. And you can look right here to see what you're actually going to get when you punch it out. Because I'd like it to have a lot of the blue on it. And then maybe the other side have the copper. So I need 4 of those, 2 for each end. All right. Then I need my teeny pointy, very sharp pointy tweezers. Okay. And there they go together. Okay, so this one I'm going to turn over, and that's a blue one, so I want a copper one with it. And the first thing I'm going to do is just give it a little bit of glue. Not too much, but it actually needs enough. This is glue for both sides, so it needs a sufficient amount to be able to hold it together. And I'm going to bring this guy over here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. And I'm just setting the string right on that flower, and the flower is curling up. Then I'm going to pick up the other side of the flower, and I'm just going to set it on top, not really worrying about if it's lined up, because when I pick it up, I can move it around and line it up. I've got enough glue on there that I have plenty of time to move that around and line it up. Rather have a little bit too much glue, because not enough glue, then it doesn't hold. The flower petals will, you know, be open, and it's a little more difficult to try to glue then. So better to have a little more and then just give it a little extra time. There we go. So we have blue flower on one side and a copper flower on the other. All right, let's do the other one quickly. This one is a little shorter, so it's not going to come out and lay down nicely like that one. So I'll do this one in my hand. Okay, see if I can get a hold of that. Whoop. And bring that up there. Squeeze them together. Oops, I pulled the string right out. So quickly, before they are stuck together, if I can open that up, get that inside. And I think there's still enough adhesive on it. While I was moving it around trying to line it up, this is the fiddly part because it's so tiny. That's why these tweezers are so great for people like me, whose fingers have a hard time with that teeny tiny. Okay. Now I've got a couple petals not lined up. I'm going to set it down so that it doesn't pull the string out while I try to turn that around. All right, if it doesn't, it's not moving anymore. The glue's been out there long enough that it is stuck. Okay, because I had to redo it. So you can see that that is off just a tiny bit right there and right there. It's all on that one petal. Because that's brown, just like the brown there, it doesn't really matter because you can't tell, it's still the same brown paper. But I could come back in and just trim one of those off if I wanted to after it dries, or I could come in with a little bit of color, the copper or the blue color. I'm not going to worry about it because it's done on brown paper and it just looks like the brown paper. So I will wait until it dries, and if there's any extra little bits of glue that I need to cut off, I can do that. And make sure my knot is nice and tight. Okay, so there's my teeny tiny book. So then I could decorate the cover, could go in throughout. I've done a lot of these where a lot of times I'll leave this scrap a little longer. This one was already cut, but I'll leave it longer and then fold it in and make a little a side pocket right there on the cover without having to glue another piece on. And then you go through, and just like your regular books, your full-size books, you can add pockets and corner tucks and all the fun things, even tiny paper clips, teeny tiny paper clips with little embellishments on them. And they are super cute and super fun to do. So I hope that that gave you a new idea to use your scraps for this year. We really want to get through the scraps this year, use as many of them as we can for useful things, and then throw away the ones that we can't, and not let those scraps be the bane of our existence and take over our craft rooms. So if you make some teeny tiny ones, please post them and use the hashtag Happy Paper People. I would love to see them, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. We also invite you to come join us in our Happy Paper People Facebook group. It is a private group. All you have to do is answer the 3 questions that are there and you'll be in right away. And we have tons and tons of fun there. Also invite you to subscribe to this channel so that you can be part of all the fun with Happy Paper People. A lot of the fun happens right here on YouTube. So hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified. We do live sales, we do live laughing crafts, we do tutorials, we do all kinds of fun things on YouTube. So we look forward to seeing you in the Happy Paper People community. And good luck using up your scraps.